one.
All right, everybody, on today's CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, we are talking about the future you, not just your past self or your present self, but the future that you want to embrace, as well as the future you may want to avoid. So stick with us.
Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, where we hear and learn from our coaches, CrossFitters, and Glen Ed community leaders. Now, here are your hosts, Dallas and Greg.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast. Great to have you here. This is where we get to talk with our CFE members and those working out in our gym, as well as learn from our CFE coaches occasionally. And then we also occasionally talk with our CFE Glen Ed community business owners and learn a little bit about them. Today, we're going to have a slightly different conversation. It's just me and G coming at you. What's up, Coach G Scale?
Yeah, it's going to be fun, though. It's always a good time just hanging out with my people. Dallas is my people. The CrossFitters are my people. And sometimes we just feel like getting on a mic and just spitballing. Just get on a mic and spitting. So we have a concept we want to play with here. So something that's been on Dallas's mind.
Yeah.
And something that is going to be coming up in some coaching calls that he'll be doing soon is the concept of like your past self, your present self, your future self. And as you like forward project, there's the you that you would like to be, the version of you want to grow into. And then there's the version of you that you really need to avoid, maybe because somebody has already walked that path and you've seen it. You're like, I know I don't want to go there. And maybe you have that version of you like, you know what? I need to head that direction. So something we wanted to talk on today. And there's a context to this that brought this to the forefront for Dallas. And Dallas, do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of to share a little bit of info with you all. This is something I've been mulling over because my father, he's 76 and he is not in great shape. He is all the things that the comorbidities say you shouldn't be. And G, I know we've talked about that in the past with your family as well, that part of your driver to live a more fit lifestyle when you were younger was you were not set up for nutritional or fitness success as a kid.
Right.
And while I was very active for a long time, in my family, food was always one of two things. It was either a comfort or it was a celebration. If you had a really bad day, we should make you something to eat. If you had a really great day, we should make something to celebrate and eat that.
Right.
It was like on both ends of the spectrum of, this is a great thing, have some food. This is a horrible thing, have some food.
Right.
And
which we've discussed in this podcast is a pretty destructive way of treating food, because it can really set up a lot of problems down the line.
Well, and you and I've talked about, because just so everybody listening knows, with the coaches at CFE, there are coaches that will check on you, check on your progress, check on your targets for the quarter or for the year, what you're wanting to do in your fitness or your nutrition. And one of the things that G and I had talked about, because he checks on me, not only do we get to co-host this thing together, but I get the text messages, that are like, hey, what are you doing?
Did you work out yesterday?
That's exactly right. I get those a lot. Or did you follow your plan? Did you follow your nutrition plan?
Right.
And one of the things that had come up in one of our last check-in calls was this idea that because food was a reward, but it would also make me feel guilty. He said, you need to find a reward that doesn't make you feel guilty. If you've had a great day or you've accomplished or you've hit a target, there needs to be a reward that doesn't make you feel guilty. So for instance, just this morning, I signed a big client for my Communicate to Succeed. G, I didn't get a chance to tell you this, but it's a nice size contract. Yeah, thank you very much. Here's my Avengers Cup water right here. So superhero water makes me feel great. But it's one of those things that in the past I would have gone, oh, I should go out and celebrate that, or I should get something to eat to celebrate that. But today was more about, oh, cool, that's awesome, I'm going to keep working. And my wife and I talked about just the fact that we might go out for like a coffee, a special date coffee for
Well,
the
you should celebrate it, right? It's something worth
absolutely.
celebrating. It's a victory. You
Yeah.
worked hard for this,
Yeah.
and it deserves recognition. So you should have a reward
Right.
with, obviously a reward that you wouldn't feel bad about later.
Exactly. It should not be a, I believe, what was yours? Yours used to be a yellow cake with chocolate frosting.
Yeah.
That was your,
Or Little Debbie snack cakes.
oh, Little Debbie's. Sure. Who,
Those
who,
two.
who
Yeah.
wanted
Oh my
to
God.
avoid fudge rounds if they didn't have to?
If they're
Uh,
anywhere near me, I'm gonna murder them. So I have to stay way. I have to stay way clear, man.
so for those of you who don't want to just give G mini Snickers or mini Kit Kats for next Halloween, grab him a box of Little Debbie's, and he'll probably be mad, but at the same time, it's Halloween, so he'll let himself loose a little. Especially if you
Halloween, I
like
will.
hand them to him one at a time every time he says trick or treat, he'll feel better.
Like, if it's Halloween, man, there is no holds barred.
No, I know. You let that one go.
Yep.
That is the ninja belt comes uncinched and
Yeah.
you go to town. But so anyway, that was kind of the relational dynamic with food with my family forever. And it's honestly, back to our main kind of topic here of future self. It is the thing that has hurt my dad the most because it was one of those things where that pattern was never A, identified, or B, broken. Not really sure which. And so full disclosure for everybody on this, and I'm not exposing him. This is not unknown information, but he's type 2 diabetes, and he's a solid 50 plus pounds overweight where he needs to be at this point. And there's some other comorbidity elements that go on. So a few weeks ago, he had knee replacement surgery and didn't seem like that should be an issue. But because of the other pre-existing conditions, there have been several complications since the knee replacement surgery. The knee replacement wouldn't have had to happen either had there not been, wear and extra miles on the vehicle from the weight. It's not the years, it's the mileage sometimes. So for him, all of these pre-existing conditions have led to all of these post-surgical complications.
Yep.
And in the last 3 weeks, we've had to take him to the emergency room multiple times and get him checked in because of other issues that have happened. He had a tear in his stomach and the digestive tract was pushing into his stomach. So there was all these other blockages and there was just all this stuff that you're like, why does that have to do with a knee replacement surgery? But what it has done is it's really been a little bit of a wake-up call for my siblings and I. And we've talked on a previous podcast, G, about my operating system upgrades. I'm assuming this one is coming out after that one, but
for sure.
But one of those I know is that relationship to food that's not positive. It's not a great thing. It's dysfunctional. How about that? That's might be the better way to say it.
Yeah.
But my siblings and I have all been having conversations now because I'm in my 40s and I'm the youngest, but my oldest sister, she is turning 55 this year. And all of those conversations are, how do we break this thing? How do we not run into this issue 22 or 3 decades down the line?
Right.
So it's had me really thinking about, and by way of biographical information, I run a mindset call for another group that is a weekly call. And a lot of what we talk about is future positioning. Who do you want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now? So while I've been watching this unfold, I began to think, okay, this is not who I want to be. And this conversation's been kind of rolling over in my brain. And I thought today would be a good point, 9.5 minutes into this podcast for me to actually introduce the topic, which is there is a past me that either was successful or a failure from which I leverage the present me. But do those two line up with the future me that I want to be? And that's kind of where I want to take this conversation a little bit today.
One of my favorite pastors, Andy Stanley, puts it this way, that your direction, not your intention, determines your destination.
Oh my gosh. You should have told me to be ready to type that one out.
Your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. You might want to walk towards a sunrise, but if you're heading west, you're not going to find one, right?
Yeah.
It's like the steps that you are taking, the direction your feet are pointing will determine where you end up ultimately, right? And that future self that we want to be is going to be the sum total of all the little decisions that we make
Right.
today and tomorrow and the day after.
Right.
The 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 principles that we embrace, the identity that we actively choose for ourselves.
Yeah.
Who are we? Like, is Dallas an athlete for life? Is Dallas not just the provider for his family? Is Dallas also the the example and the fitness leader
Yeah.
for his wife, for his kids? Because I think we all know and we appreciate, but like, do we actually live in a way? There's that expression to say you would die for your kids.
But
Would
will
you
you live
live
for them?
healthy? Would you live healthy for them
Yeah.
as well? Because you know, when I was coming up myself, Dallas's story of his father resonates with me because his dad's story is essentially the same story of my father, except that my father he didn't make it out of that series of complications that he had after
Right.
the surgery. But growing up, my dad was he was completely committed and married to his work and his job, and my mom kind of tended to the household, and my mom was juggling. She had four kids. I'm one of four,
Hmm.
and my mom did the best that she could, but you know try to make healthy decisions when you're juggling the whole household basically on your own,
Right.
and you got four kids, and each of those kids, we were, for the majority of our upbringing, we were all homeschooled.
Right.
So there's also that aspect that she's trying to get us to do the things we're supposed to do academically. And so the idea of fitness was, honestly, in our household, it was considered a distraction. It was considered harmful to the objective, which was being good at school. The ultimate value system in our household was to be good academically, right?
Yep.
So if you were doing well academically, you were doing well, period. Health be damned. So we
Yep.
didn't really think or focus on healthy eating or exercise in any way whatsoever. And in fact, I go so far as to say that the exercise was probably discouraged to an extent. So
And we all, like, I did sports, my theater background, I did a ton of dance, I did mime. Yes, I did mime. We don't talk about it, but I did all of those things. So I was a super active kid, but the nutrition did not support the activity. So
mhm,
when you're young and you've got this self-regulating insulin that's like, hey, we can take over anything. It's like you can put anything in the engine of a new vehicle.
yeah.
But as that vehicle ages, you're like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have ridden you that hard in that particular area."
And the oil
Um,
changes become more necessary more frequently.
yeah, and just like, "Oh, I need a filter change right now. I didn't know I needed that. My brake pads are a little worn out." All of those elements. Um,
The engine is squeaking. What the hell is wrong with it?
right, you can hide a bunch of that when you're young, but, I don't think either, like, when I think of what my I don't know about you, G, but when I grew up, we had the President's Physical Fitness Awards. Did you guys have that growing up?
I
Or was that
kind
done by
of
them?
remember it, but I don't know if I was ever actually involved in it. Like, if it
That was
was,
a very Reagan era, like, I was, when in Reagan's day, I had, I think, 3 or 4 years that I won the President's Physical Fitness Award, and I got the little patch
that's
signed
awesome.
from the White House that I know was just a printer thing. Um, but I had friends who graduated in '92 and that, or were, like, in that age group in '92 and '93, and it was not a thing anymore, so I don't know
I don't
when that
really
dropped.
remember. I remember doing a sit and reach test, but I
Mhm.
also remember that if anything physical was elective, I was opted out. Let's put it
Okay.
that way.
Okay.
So,
So for us, PE was like hardcore, and I could do shuttle runs like a boss, a 400 and 800, like those were my races. Um,
right.
and me with shoulder to overhead, I could nail a shot put out there
I bet.
with
Your
guys.
power, man, I bet.
Um, but uh, but I remember being super physically fit, but I did not source the nutrition in a way, and it was either Cap and Crunch or Fruit Loops, most days for breakfast, or cinnamon rolls on the weekend. It was not great things, but what it did was it built patterns of behavior as well as patterns of belief about the relationship with food. I remember hearing someone just recently talk about the fact that, if you're not, and we've talked about this too, Coach Kelsey and you and I and several others on this podcast, if you're not shopping at the outside lanes of the grocery store,
Right.
and not eating the fruits, the vegetables, the meats, etc., you are, in essence, you're not eating food, you're eating a product.
Right.
And that switch has really started to come over me in the last little bit, and then again seeing it with my dad here. I ran across too, as I've been thinking about this, I ran across a quote from Matthew McConaughey. So I like, all right, I get to quote him a little bit. Someone
When I
asked,
think about like profound quotes, he's one of the first ones I go to.
heck yeah, I wish I could do a good enough impression of him to read this quote, but you're just gonna get it in my Midwest nasally Amsden voice. So somebody asked
All
him,
right.
all right. So
Mhm.
they asked him, who's your hero? And he said, when I was 15 years old, I had a very important person in my life come to me and say, who's your hero? And I said, you know who it is? It's me in 10 years. So then I turned 25. 10 years later, that same person came to me and said, so are you your hero? And I said, not even close. No, no, no. She said, why? And I said, because my hero is me at 35.
Mhm.
And then he said, so you see, every day, every week, every month, every year of my life, my hero is always 10 years away. I'm never going to be my hero. I'm not going to attain it. I know that I'm not, and it's fine with me because that keeps me with somebody to keep on chasing.
Sure.
And I was like, dang it, Matthew McConaughey.
I like that.
It's like, did he pull it from the Dalai Lama himself? It's such a great quote.
Well, I mean, like all pursuit of greatness is an infinite pursuit. We can always improve. We can always get better. And really, it should be exciting for us that because the potential to learn more about relationships, the potential to learn more in our fields, the
Yeah.
potential to learn more in fitness and health,
There's no
that
destination.
the potential to learn is
Yeah.
infinite, and
Yeah.
therefore like our growth potential should also therefore be considered infinite also, and that
Right.
should be an exciting thing. I think that some people, might look at it as a discouraging thing that you have an aspiration, you'll never really get there, but you're always moving in a direction. That should be aspirational. It should be
Yep.
hopeful
Yep.
talk. It should be hopeful speak.
Yep. And so that's kind of where I started really thinking about this idea of my future self. In McConaughey said that quote, but in even a year from now, Tony Robbins once said, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade.
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea is, even when people do a New Year's resolution, it's, I'm going to do this year and this year. Like, they put all these things out there and they way overestimate what they can do personally, physically, spiritually, relationally, professionally, all of the things. But if they started just putting themselves on a course of daily consistent behaviors and habits, they actually arrive there much sooner than they plan. And I had written down this quote, and for those of you watching, your values are revealed by your routines. So if you value health, if you value fitness, then your routine shows that, reveals that. If you value relationship, your routine shows that. I have a hard time taking marriage advice from someone who's been married, who's been divorced 3 times. I
Sure.
have a hard time taking financial advice from someone who is in worse financial state than my wife and I, or business advice from someone who hasn't made it to my level, or fitness advice from a 350-pound guy. Like, I
Sure.
struggle with those things. I need to know that you're expert in those things, because your values of, do you really value that level in your life, are
Mhm.
revealed by what I see in your patterns and your routines. So I began to think, And I came across another quote that discipline is choosing what you want now, or sorry, discipline is choosing what you want most instead of what you want now.
I like that. I think that like so much of success just comes down to the willingness to forego what is easy and convenient and makes us feel good right here, right now, in this moment for what is better, big picture, and makes us
Mhm.
feel phenomenal
Yeah.
later on. It's foregoing the short term in favor of the long term.
Yeah.
So much
It's
of
it's
success is
delayed gratification, right?
delayed gratification, although that delayed gratification feels 1,000 times better than the short term high right
Right.
now.
Right.
The soda makes me feel good for 20 minutes right now. And then I feel guilty about the poor example I set for my kids for years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I do with my coaching clients, not in the communicate to succeed, but in the mindset and that whole world, um, is we have this conversation that's known as a gap conversation. Where are you now versus where do you want to be, and what's the gap? Like, what are the current behaviors and positioning of where you are versus what your hope and what you're planning to do? Where's the gap between those two? And how do you traverse this gap? So it kind of comes to this: your values are revealed by your routines.
Mhm.
There's a future you out here, everybody, that you want to embrace, and there's a future you out here that you want to avoid. The patterns today in your present are, which one are you moving toward? It's
Yeah.
do you know the story of the two wolves?
I don't think I do. No, I don't know if I've heard this
Okay,
one.
so there's you're gonna love this one, and hey, for those of you coming down the pike for a no sweat conversation, you might hear this one later, but basically, it's the story of the two wolves. A little boy asked his grandfather. He saw a dark wolf and a white wolf, and they were fighting, and he was asking about it, and the grandfather said, well, in each of us there's a dark wolf and a white wolf. There's all the things we don't want to be. There's the hopes that we within us that are not virtuous. They're self-serving, they're destructive. That's kind of the dark side. But also in us is the light side, which is our virtues and our values and our aspirations and who we hope to be. But those two wolves are at war within us. And the little boy asked his grandfather, well, which wolf will win? And the grandfather responded, the one you feed.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
a really, really smart analogy.
Yeah.
And really, like, you could think of like the little decisions we make today are feeding one or the other.
Hmm.
Like so many people, especially entrepreneurs, we're such momentum driven
Yeah.
creatures,
Yep.
Like if I've been eating healthy for a few months in a row, it sure is easier to keep that train going.
Yep.
But if I've been making, poor food choices, if I've been eating in an unhealthy way, it's really easy to keep doing that also. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
inertia inertia works both ways. And
Yep.
so if you're if you're consistently choosing to stay late at work, you're communicating that your career is your top objective, and you're also communicating to your family at home that they are less important than
Yep.
your career, and you're communicating to yourself that your career is more important than your relationships with your family. And so your identity becomes wrapped around career versus family.
Right.
And those little daily decisions fray the relationships. The next thing you know, like there's trouble in paradise,
There's
trouble
trouble.
at home.
Yeah, exactly. So on the back of my power playbook, I have a quote that very similar to what you just said. Momentum is built moment by moment.
Hmm,
You have the power to build into your life either positive or negative momentum by how you choose to manage your moments.
I love that. I feel like that's a beautiful little bow to wrap up this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
and this topic. And I feel
Well,
like go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for those of you listening, again, there's two futures out there in front of you: the future you want to embrace or the future you want to avoid. And couple of questions you just should think about asking yourself. Where are you right now in the present? What is working? What isn't working? Why is it working or why is it not working? And what do you need to change or what do you need to shift to move toward the future you want to embrace? And if you
Well,
just do a little bit of that self-awareness and self-exploration, you'll know the answers that fast, you know?
Well, I think that the natural follow up to this conversation too is to take a moment, step back, and self audit or self inventory.
Yeah.
Your calendar says things about your values.
Yep.
What are your true values? Like the behaviors that you actually do,
Yep.
the places you actually spend your time, your very limited time, energy, and resources. What does that communicate? What is actually important to you?
Yep.
And then identify, like, are those values going to get you to be the white wolf down the line,
Yeah.
or are you going to be the dark wolf looking back on today with the pain of regret?
Yep.
And then that expression, right? You can have the pain of discipline, you can have the pain of regret.
Yep. And that's the idea. It's the whole idea of it's the one you feed.
Right.
I think we need to all be aware of that. And I appreciate you letting me just kind of sound this out. We went everybody with no notes here, with no thoughts of what we were going to talk about. I had like the McConaughey quote and a few other things, but she was like, dude, let's just talk it out. So this was definitely helpful for me.
Hopefully it's been helpful for the audience too. Maybe something you've heard here has resonated with you, and maybe it can be the seed that ultimately blossoms something great down the line. And we do hope that maybe it's helped you to see something you haven't seen before in your life. Maybe something great, maybe
Mhm.
something harmful or destructive, because a lot of times just having that awareness counts for a lot, especially if you take that awareness and you turn it into action.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, everybody, we're going to let you go here. Just real quickly here, as we always like to say, we want to have those conversations with you. Feel free to throw into the Google machine CrossFit Edwardsville, read our reviews. You can also catch us on social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at CrossFit Edwardsville. But when you're ready, go to CrossFitEdwardsville.com. That's CrossFitEdwardsville.com. You'll see a nice button that says book a no sweat conversation. We would love to have those conversations with you and talk to you about your future self and which of the wolves that you want to feed. So that is it. G, thank you so much for letting me hammer these thoughts out with you a little bit today.
Hey man, always good time. Good talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, everybody. And I always like to say it, but I'm going to let G say it today. G, what do we say?
Gentlemen and ladies and people on the fence about which they are, have yourselves a championship day.